The Get Rich Slow Club podcast is a collaboration between Tash from Tash Invest and Ana from Perla. The Get Rich Slow Club acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land we record on. From coast to coast, across land, waters, and communities, we pay our respects to elders past, present, and emerging. Any advice is general and does not consider your financial situation, needs, or objectives, so consider whether it's appropriate for you.
Welcome to the Get Rich Slow Club podcast,
where we take you from beginner to confident investor,
where we can teach you everything you need to know about investing.
So come get rich slow with us.
I am so excited for today's episode because this is something I love talking about so much. We're going to be talking about all things frequent flyer points. But first, money moments. What's yours, Anna?
I spent $57 on parking for, I think it was like 2 hours or something. And I was blown away. I did not think that it would be that much. I was really annoyed by it. I was like, why didn't I notice? But I should have known better. It was in the CBD in Melbourne and, parking isn't cheap.
That's insane. $57. Did you not, is there the signs or you just didn't look at the sign?
I don't think I looked at the sign because I was trying to figure out where to park, and when you kind of go in and you don't, the rates are on the side and you don't really see it. And you're like, surely it won't be that much. No, it was that much. No, I was just so angry about it.
I have a memory of my mum when I was really young. We were in Brisbane and we were from Perth where you don't really have to pay that much for parking. So we went to Brisbane for some trip. I don't remember why. And I think it cost her $60 back then for 3 hours.
Oh,
and I just had this vivid memory of how angry she was about it. So now I always look at the price before I park somewhere. That is stuck with me forever.
Yeah, usually I do, but I think it was I wasn't sure where to turn and whether it was the right parking. And I think I was just overwhelmed with all of that and just trying to quickly, navigate the CBD because it's not my favorite place to drive with
especially not Melbourne
turns.
As well. Oh.
Yeah. So learn my lesson. Now I will be like you and your mom and definitely check all the time.
Parking is just, paying for parking is not it. Especially $57. That's insane. That's getting a bit much.
I was so angry. It ruined my whole experience because I went in and I had a goal. I needed to purchase a couple things and I wanted to be in and out. And so when I got hit with that, I was like, oh, you ruined my experience.
I didn't even get the things that I wanted. I didn't pay not great.
Oh, well. What's yours?
Mine's a bit more fun. I saw yesterday that Jetstar's having a sale and I booked 5 nights accommodation in a 4-star hotel, return flights from Sydney, and it includes baggage as well, which is rare for Jetstar. I feel like usually you have to pay so much. And it cost us $763 each, which I think is pretty good.
Wow. Oh my gosh. When are you going?
In September for a week.
Oh, how good.
Yeah. I tried so hard to price match it and find Virgin flights that would work instead because I'm definitely a Virgin fan, but nothing would even compare at all. And I was like, oh, can I book a different hotel? But even booking the flights separately, the flights were pretty much the same price anyway with Jetstar. So insane that it's this cheap for the whole package.
That's awesome. Before having kids, I was on the Jetstar email list and they would send out their Friday frenzies and I'd always find the best deals. I went to, Japan for pretty cheap, flew around, always finding what the best deals are. So if you don't have anything specifically planned for a specific date or a specific time, it's always great to be on those email lists. Now it's also funny because they charge for every single thing. I think it was getting an SMS costs money now too to get updates.
$2 or something. Yeah.
I was like, come on. It's just ruining the experience of being a consumer. And I think we've talked about this in the past with all these different little charges that get added up. But yeah, Jetstar can be very affordable.
Yeah, so I'm surprised they include the 20 kilos of baggage in their holiday packages because I just assumed it would be the carry-on, and Jetstar's pretty onto it in terms of weighing your carry-on bags as well. So I usually always have to buy checked baggage. So this is such a good deal.
Awesome. We'll have a great holiday. I'm very jealous, but maybe I'm going to have to keep an eye out for a little family holiday pack somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. Would recommend.
Mm-hmm. So today we're going to talk all about points. And I'm very excited because I used to do way more point hacking than I do now. So I'm excited to learn from you, Tash, because you're way much more into it than I am at the moment. So let's talk points. What are points?
So points essentially are just the reward or loyalty programs that airlines or some shops use to hope that you will spend more money there or be loyal to their brand. So the popular ones in Australia are Velocity frequent flyer points or Qantas points. So Velocity points are for Virgin flights and Qantas points are for Qantas flights.
But there's also points that come down to some of the grocery stores as well. So
yes, yeah. So there's so many. So there's everyday rewards, which you can convert into Qantas points, or there's flybys that you can convert into velocity points.
So those are just things to consider when you're getting all your points together, where you're also doing your shopping and what you're trying to collect holistically. And most of the points can also get you flights, but they can also get you other things as well.
Yeah, definitely. You can redeem them for hotels. You can redeem them for gift vouchers. But in terms of like the value for money, like business class upgrades or business class flights are seen as the most valuable. And then domestic flights, followed by hotels, and then gift vouchers are the least valuable way to use your points.
That's always really fascinating as well, because I always just thought about that as well. Like flights make the most sense. I didn't realize that that was a quantifiable way to actually look at the differences in value.
Yeah, some people say that you should be getting at least 1 cent per point to be getting good value out of them. But it kind of really depends on how much you've spent to actually earn those points. Like if you're just getting them for free from your everyday shop anyway, it doesn't matter how you choose to redeem them. Like for example, you can turn 2,000 Flybuys points into $10 of credit, or 2,000 Flybuys points into 1,000 velocity points. And then if you go and use those for flights or whatever, it can get a bit hard doing all of the math. But I guess if you stick to that 1 cent per point, that's generally a good rule of thumb.
And how do you do the math? I mean, like obviously it's a convoluted kind of way. Like these are these points, they're not really dollars. You have to kind of do the math. What's the best way to kind of figure that out?
I like to look at flights I'm going to take anyway and see how much they cost in points. So for example, a Qantas flight from Canberra to Perth direct is 18,000 Qantas points. And that flight can cost anywhere from $500 to $1,000 because it's quite a pricey route. So I kind of have that in my mind where I'm like, if this credit card comes with an 80,000 point bonus, that's 2 return flights between Perth to Canberra with Qantas, which is amazing, plus some left over. I think from Sydney to Melbourne, you can get velocity flights from 6,200 points. You can keep that in mind and be like, if that flight's worth between $100 to $300, that's what I can get for my 6,000 points. But it really kind of depends what you're actually going to use it for. I think we can get caught in a trap of being like, yes, I'd love a business class upgrade to LA, but if it wasn't a flight we were going to take anyway, we can get caught in the trap of trying to spend money to use them. So I feel like it's a good idea to find something you'd buy anyway, or that's a value to you, and kind of use that as your gauge of what something's worth.
And are there ever times where you kind of look at a flight and you think, oh, I'm going to use my points, but it's actually not worth it? Like it's better to pay in cash?
Yeah, definitely. Those shorter routes, I find for me, if I'm flying between Canberra to Melbourne, that's usually cost me like $200. So it's not usually worth it for me with those flights. But for flights to Perth, like Perth can be really pricey, especially during school holidays. So I find saving points for those longer flight routes a lot more valuable. Or I recently used points to fly to Tokyo. Like those flights were going to cost me over $1,000. And I used, I think it was like 50,000 points or something, which was great value for me. But yeah, definitely those shorter ones, or ones where you have Jetstar sales quite often. I don't bother with points. Like with our money win today, I was saying I bought the Jetstar holiday package. Like that wouldn't have been worth using points for.
Yeah, I've used points to fly to India before and back home to Canada. And it was beneficial in those ways because I was saving as many points as possible. It was a longer route. It was easier to kind of then look at the points and get the value out of that. But I haven't been looking as closely to the challenge of having 4 people to look for as opposed to 1 person when it comes to flights as well. So is there also, I know that like business class is a big thing to look at for points and upgrades. Do you think that that is sometimes more bang for buck as opposed to the actual flight route?
Yes. But if it wasn't something you were going to spend money on anyway, like it's nice to be like, oh yeah, I've saved $4,000 on this business class flight. But if you weren't going to spend that money anyway, have you really actually saved it? I think like, yes, it's the best value. But in terms of actually saving money and the best value to you, I often find just buying the economy tickets, you can get further with your points and you can save more in the long run. But business class is also really fun. So kind of weighing up both of those two. Sometimes I do fly business class because there's only reward seats in business and not in economy. So therefore it's cheaper to actually fly business with points, which is really exciting. But I think those upgrades, you can get a little bit stuck of being like, yes, I want to make the most of my points. I think it's really good to like think about what you're using points for. Do you want to save on the travel you're already doing, or do you want to upgrade for free or less money?
Yeah, that's fair. And when you go and look to use points, so let's say I'm a newbie, I'm looking at flights somewhere. How do you go about it on the website? Do you look up the flight route that you actually want to take, or do you look up the points? Like, what's the first step that you should do?
It depends where you want to go and if you're being really flexible. If you just want to use your points to get a good value holiday, there's this website called seats.aero, which is really handy. You have to pay to look outside of 3 months, I think. It's only $20 a month though. And you can look across Virgin and Qantas and other partner airlines too. And it'll just list all the reward seats available, which is really handy. So you can put in from Australia to Europe or something like that and just see what comes up. if I'm looking for a specific route, I will just put in like Perth to Canberra and open it up in Qantas, and I'll also open it up in Velocity and see which one has available flights. You can kind of see the seat map in a monthly view, but it doesn't work always. So it does take a lot of time to like put in dates and try and fiddle and make it work. So either you need to be really flexible on dates for a specific destination or really flexible on a destination for specific dates.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know last year when I was flying back to Canada, I was having this conversation with you about like, I have all these points. Can I make my flight cheaper? But because I was so specific with the dates that I was going and the time, it just wasn't worth it in terms of using points for that. So I just paid cash and saved my points for another time. So
yeah, it takes a lot of time. So if you've not got time to sit down and do it, sometimes it can just be like a bit exhausting because you do have to go through like so many different options. And even then, if there's no flights from like Canberra, for example, then I'll start searching from Sydney or Melbourne and like seeing if it's worth flying to one of those other cities. Often there's like reward seats out of Adelaide or Brisbane because they're less popular than Sydney or Melbourne. So trying to like factor those in as well. Or I've seen people book flights to Bali and book their Europe flights from Bali to Europe with points. So there's lots of different ways to hack it that way as well.
Yeah. I know at one point I was with American Express, and they also had partners that were other airlines. So I was flying to Europe and I was using Emirates. And so I had to do the math to convert the points. I think they were Qantas points to convert them into Emirates in order to buy those flights. And it's a lot of admin work. But it's worth it.
Yeah, especially if you've got a card, like a lot of banks will have their own bank points as well that you have to then convert into Qantas or Velocity or whatever points. And they've all got different ratios. Like I think the Chris Flyer miles with Singapore are now, you need 3 Amex points to equal one of those points. But most of them it's like you need 2 points to equal one of the other points. There's lots of maths to go back and do there. Like points aren't all equal.
Yeah, that was that. And being really aware of if flights change their points. I know at one point it was like 3-1 and then they changed it to like 4-1 or something like that. And if that's the case, switching those points over before the provider does, is something to be aware of. And that was something I got caught up in. So there is a lot of admin and a lot of mental load when it comes to point hacking. For any newbies who are like, okay, I want to do this. I want to start with getting points. Where do they begin?
I think you have to pick which program you want to start with. So I personally collect both Velocity and Qantas points, but when you initially start, pick one. You can have a look on their websites to see if they fly where you want to go. They've both got partner airlines. So for example, Velocity's partnered with Qatar, so you can fly through Qatar. Or I think Qantas is still partnered with Emirates, for example. So go through and see where they fly and if you can use their points, and the availability as well. So I feel like domestically going to Perth, Velocity has a lot more availability than Qantas does. So that's a good thing to have a look at as well. But yeah, pick one of those first and then think about how you want to earn points. So we'll talk about this in a little bit, but have a think about, do you want to get a credit card? Is that a good idea for you? Probably if it's not, that's okay. There's other ways too. Think about where you shop as well. Like if you absolutely love Coles, then maybe you'll go for Velocity because Coles, you can earn Velocity points through fly and buys.
Great. So actually, let's talk about that. How to earn points. I know you mentioned credit cards, and obviously that comes with a big disclaimer as well. But let's just chat about how to do it through credit cards.
So credit cards often offer really big sign-up bonuses to get you to sign up to the credit card, and these will come with a minimum spend. So for example, it might be like, if you sign up to this Amex credit card, you'll get 80,000 bonus points, but you need to spend $5,000 within 2 or 3 months. So I like to time credit card sign-ups with when I'm buying something big, like a laptop, or I'm booking a big holiday, so I can make that minimum spend. They often exclude things like government payments, so just make sure that what you're buying is actually included in that minimum spend. And then have a look at other bonuses too. So sometimes they have free lounge passes, sometimes they have free insurances, which I think is really helpful. But the biggest way is by getting that initial bonus. You do earn points per like dollar spent as well, but I find these are less good value compared to the actual initial bonus.
Yeah, I know that when I signed up to some of my credit cards in the past, that they had that big bonus. Plus, some of them would have something like $200 free flight.
Yes, yeah.
Add-on as well. So these credit cards are often doing things like that. So it's good to be aware of that.
Yeah, and decide who you want to go with as well. Like Amex often has the best point offers a lot of the time, but a lot of places charge fees to use your Amex. So I like to have an Amex, but also either a MasterCard or Visa. So maybe for your first one, start with a MasterCard or Visa through like ANZ often has good ones. If you want to compare, the Point Hack website is really good as well. So you can go scroll through the offers there too. But in saying all of this, credit cards aren't for everyone. And the reason that they give you all these points is because they make money from people using credit cards. So think really hard about whether it's going to be a good thing for you or whether you're going to actually spend money to have the credit card. I do have to pay an annual fee on mine, and it usually evens out for me. Like I think the annual fee on some of mine are $400, but flying from Canberra to Perth is very expensive. So it's pretty easy for me to save money using my points. For other people, it might not be that case. So make sure you actually sit down and think about how you're going to use the points and whether it's worth it for you.
And just another disclaimer on credit cards is that you should pay them off every month, every time you get your invoice, because that does accrue over time in the same way that compound interest accrues with compounding. Credit cards do the exact same way with debt.
Yes. So make sure you've got the direct debit set up, or you've got a calendar reminder to check a few days before that you paid it off. Because like the interest rate's huge. It's like 21, 22% on some of these, which can really add up so quickly.
Actually, speaking of, Tash, you said a long time ago that you were going to set up a direct debit for your credit card. Did you manage to do that? Still on the to-do list?
No, I've given up. It's too hard because you have to print out something and scan it back to set it up with Westpac for some reason. It's annoying. So instead, I put a calendar reminder in a few days beforehand, and that's worked a lot better for me.
As long as you're paying it off, right?
Yeah, as long as you're remembering to pay it off, yes.
Yeah.
And not getting charged a fee, yes.
So there's other disclaimers that come with credit cards, especially if you're thinking about future purchases in terms of a house or getting a loan. What are some of those that people should be aware of, Tash?
Yeah, a credit card can really impact your borrowing capacity. So if you're thinking about buying property, make sure, or getting a loan for anything really, make sure you chat to a mortgage broker to see how it impacts you. Also be wary of signing up for a new credit card right before you're trying to get a loan as well. It can negatively impact your credit score in the short term, because to get a credit card, you have to have something called a credit inquiry where the bank checks your credit score, and that can impact it negatively in the short term. So I think just being wary of that and what your credit score is. Mine's always been really good, so this has never really harmed me. I've seen it drop temporarily, but I only really get like one credit card a year. I've seen some people online get like 4 a year or one every 3 months, which seems like quite a lot. And I think that can get a lot to handle as well. But I think just watching your credit score and being mindful of where it is and if you're actually making those payments back on time.
I know that when we purchased our house, we had to they suggested we shut down our credit card for our borrowing capacity, but I didn't want to do that. So I just reduced the limit to, I think it was like $500 just in order to, get our mortgage set up and then changed it back to the level it was at. So just something to be mindful of.
I think the way they do it is they assume that you've borrowed the full amount that you're allowed to. So if your credit limit is like $15,000, they assume your repayments are that you've borrowed that maximum $15,000, which can be huge if you've got a few credit cards. And some of them have like minimum limits of $15,000, which is like a huge amount.
Yeah, exactly. Which is something that I found so interesting because back home in Canada and in the US, that's not something that's considered. It actually is like, oh, you're responsible because you have a credit card, and therefore It doesn't get considered as part of your borrowing capacity. So when I came here and they're like, you should shut down your credit card if you're trying to go for a house mortgage, I just found that very bizarre in comparison. But it makes sense, right? Like you could literally take $15K worth of debt out on your credit card and not pay it back. So that's just a big risk to the bank. Yeah,
definitely. And I think in like the US, obviously you need a credit card to build your credit score, but that's not the case in Australia. And that's just a myth that I see around.
Yeah. Just these differences across countries and myths that continue on from place to place.
If you've decided credit cards are not for you, that's completely fine because there are heaps of other ways to earn points. So we've kind of mentioned earlier through either Flybuys or everyday rewards by shopping at Coles or Woolies, you can earn points. The best way I think to do that is to make sure you're boosting the point offers in the app. Have you seen those, Anna?
Yes, I boosted actually yesterday before I did my online order.
Amazing. And another way is gift cards. So often they will have promotions where you can get 20 times the points on gift cards. So recently I went to, I think it was to Coles, because I went to Flybuys points. I went to Coles and I bought $2,000 worth of gift cards to use at JB Hi-Fi because I wanted to buy a new iPhone. From buying those $2,000 worth of gift cards, I got 40,000 Flybuys points, which they then converted into 20,000 Velocity points, which is enough for a flight from Sydney to Perth, which is amazing.
That's so good. I wish I did more of that. I think I've said that to you before. The gift cards is not on my resume in terms of skill set. So that's a new thing that I'm going to add to my repertoire as well, especially when you know you're going to make that big purchase.
Yeah, I've done it for things like when I bought a washing machine, I bought Good Guys gift vouchers. You can even buy them sometimes for like just FPOS ones. You do have to pay a fee to activate them. So usually it's only worth it for the higher value ones. But even looking at like how you can turn Flybuys points into Flybuys dollars, it's usually worth it if you actually remember to spend them. I find it can get a bit hard when you've got gift cards everywhere that you've like half spent money on, but like it can be a good hack, especially for those bigger purchases.
Mm-hmm. There's also sign-up bonuses for things like gas, insurances, and so forth.
I've seen them recently on, I think it's AGL. If you live somewhere that has AGL, Canberra doesn't. It was like 30,000 bonus velocity points. I don't know when that ends, but that's such a good one too. And recently you can get points with DD now for velocity, which is awesome.
Great. And you also use it for hotels, don't you?
Yes. So you can earn a lot of Qantas points sometimes when they've got promotions on their hotels. So usually I find on Qantas hotels are a little bit more expensive than through like Agoda or Booking.com. But sometimes they have like 9 times the Qantas points. So from booking a hotel stay, you can get like 10,000 bonus points, which is so good. When I'm going back to that like Perth to Sydney or Perth to Canberra flight. Another way I've seen people do it is wine. Like Qantas wine is so good as well. They'll often have like 10,000 bonus points, or you can earn like, I saw someone earn like 30,000 points by hacking a few different things for spending $300 on wine. So that's pretty cool as well.
Oh, that's great. I know we've gotten points before for car hires because that's something that we have to do for our family. So it's just anywhere that you can kind of see it. Don't forget to get some points if you're going to spend that money anyways.
Yeah, and they list all of these on their websites too. So you can have a look on Velocity or Qantas and see what all their partners are. They've also got like e-store things as well. So if you need to buy gift cards and they're not on special at Coles or Woolies, or you need to buy something, often they have point bonuses like on their marketplace or e-stores. So that's a good option as well.
So what's the next thing on your list for point hacking? What do you think you're going to do next?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe more gift cards. I want to buy a new laptops, but that might be 3 to 6 months down the line. I've not had a new credit card for over a year, so maybe that, but I have my own business now. So I think it's going to be a bit harder than it used to be to get a credit card. I used to just send them 2 pay slips and they just like approved me straight away. But now I feel like I have to jump through a few more hoops. I did try to get one a month ago or so, but I had to call them up and they were like, here's a paper form to fill out. And I was like, paper forms aren't for me.
Yeah. One thing we didn't talk about is credit card churning. That's something that a lot of people do. What is it? Should you do it? Should you not?
Yes, it's when you get a credit card for the bonus points, you meet the criteria and then you cancel it pretty much and get a new one. Yes, you can do it to a certain extent, but I'd be mindful of not spending more than you actually wanted to spend. Like spending $5,000 on a minimum spend is quite high on things you actually put on a credit card, because like mostly you can't put like your rent on your credit card. You have to actually buy food or whatever it is. And also being mindful of your credit score and trying to get a loan as well. For me personally, I think 1 a year is usually pretty good. So then I'll cancel it before the renewal fee the next year. But yeah, it really depends on you. I just be very mindful of it and make sure you're very wary of paying them off on time, not letting it get out of hand, and not paying unnecessary fees for things.
Yeah, one of the things I do like about credit cards is, for example, we have an offset account, and what we can do is buy all the things that we need on a credit card, and then you eventually pay off that credit card. So that money has sat in your offset account for a longer period of time. So in a way, my money is working for me in my offset by offsetting my interest, but also I'm paying off my credit card, so I'm not paying any interest on my credit card. So it's just another thing to be mindful of. Again, credit cards aren't for everyone.
No, and there's definitely stats showing or research showing that you spend more when you have a credit card. Something I used to do when I first got one is I would pay it off literally instantly. Like every time I used it, I would just pay it off straight away. I think that was a really good way to like keep up with it and not let it get out of hand. Because I've had a few months where I've been like, wow, I don't remember spending $2,000 this month on my credit card, but like somehow you have, because it all adds up. It's just making sure you're very aware of it, especially in the beginning.
And the other thing that we did mention is that credit cards usually have a payment attached to them. So when you're actually paying, it's like 1% or 0.5% of the cost of whatever you purchase. Like I went to the doctor's this morning and I saw that as well. Like if you're using a Visa or MasterCard, it's this much. If it's an Amex, it's even higher. So that's another thing to be mindful of. I went for a drink with a friend who pulled out cash and I was like, whoa, I haven't seen someone buy a drink with cash for ages. And she's like, yeah, I just don't want to pay those small fees. And I was like, that's a really smart way about thinking about how you're using your money, and the extra little payments that you don't see add up when, especially if you're buying big purchases. Like 1% is a huge amount of a big purchase.
Yeah, definitely. I find usually at like Coles and Woolies, they don't charge the surcharges, which is awesome. So if you're just buying it to pay for groceries, it can be a good strategy. Or when I buy flights, usually I get free travel insurance with my card. So then I'm fine paying like the $7 or $15 surcharge to offset the travel insurance fee. But yeah, definitely something to be wary of because it does add up really quickly. And some places are pretty brutal. They're like 2% Amex fee, which I would never pay.
Amex. Oh, the poor Amex because it has such good points. But yeah. My partner was like, look how much it costs us every time we buy something 2%. Mm.
I find their customer service is so good though, compared to some of the other ones. Like I've had problems and I've called Amex and they've answered straight away and they've been so helpful. But I had one of my ANZ cards were hacked and I had to be on hold for 3 hours to try and like get it closed. And they were like, oh, are you sure this wasn't you that got 20 Ubers in a different state to where you are now? Just like it wasn't. The customer service wasn't the same.
Yeah, Amex actually at one point, I tried to cancel my card because of credit card churning and so forth. And they were like, well, if you stay with us, we'll give you a gift certificate or for $100 or $200. I can't remember. It was like a large amount. And I was like, well, for that amount, I guess I'll stay. I'll just cancel maybe at another time. Not suggesting to do this, but you're totally right. They have great customer service. And I
just like when they answer you. Yeah, especially when something goes wrong as well. Like you don't want someone running around with your credit card information somehow. Like I found that so stressful having to be on the phone for so long. Whereas Amex is like, what else can we help you with?
Yeah,
it's great.
They're delightful. So anyways, hopefully our listeners know everything about credit cards now.
Yes. If you want to find out more information about things, like some of the resources I really love are obviously Oz Bargain is really cool. They often have point deals and stuff like that. The Point Hack website as well. And there's also so many good Instagram accounts. There's one called Free Points. There's one called like the Points Coach. There's the Points Wanderer. I often tag them in my points videos so you can go find them there. But if you want to stay up to date with all the offers, definitely follow some of those accounts and Oz Bargain as well.
Awesome. And that's all for today. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us. If you found this episode helpful, please rate us 5 stars, write a review, or share with a friend. If you're new to investing, make sure to listen to our first 10 episodes. Follow us at Get Rich Slow Club or Tash at Tash Invest or me at Ana Cristina.
This show was brought to you by Natasha Etchman, who is an authorized representative 1299881 of Guideway Financial Services, AFSL 420367, and Perla, who is an authorized representative 1281540 of Sanlam Private Wealth, AFSL 337927. Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to investing. So make sure you check out our financial services guides and read the product disclosure statement and target market determination for any investments you're considering. See our show notes for more info.